Today, boys and girls, we're going to be answering the question, why is frequency separation essential info for you as a musician, vocalist, songwriter, mixing engineer, producer, arranger, whatever the case may be, and how you can apply it. There's two main areas I'm going to be focusing on, and that is firstly, how you can apply this info to choose your sound or shape your tone, and secondly, how you can use this info to decide what to play or sing. I'm going to look at the different roles you might be playing or the different roles that I play. And I'm going to explain why this stuff is really important. These four boxes, lows, low mids, high mids, highs, these are the lens through which I view any piece of music or any sound that I create. So when I'm mixing a band, for example, at all given points of time, I'm listening to the whole mix as I'm asking myself, how are the lows in the mix? Oh, there's way too much lows. So I know who's in the lows. We've got kick and we've got bass. So if there's too much lows in the mix, maybe my kick is too loud or maybe my bass is too loud. Simple example. Likewise, I'm looking through low mids, high mids, highs to check whether my mix is balanced at all times. And this is the same thought process that I have as a songwriter or producer when I'm writing a song or when I'm arranging a song in the studio or with a live band as well. I'm always looking through those low mids, highs to see what elements can I introduce into the song, into the mix to make it sound more full, to make it sound like there's drama, there's stuff coming in, coming out, to make everything sound like they fit in their own space. Remember, coming back to the sunset analogy, we want every color to sit in its own place because then we can see the beautiful spread of colors rather than a mesh or mush of colors together. I apply this when I'm looking at individual elements in a mix, when I'm shaping a sound. And this is true for you as a musician as well. For example, if you're a bassist, this is something bassists tell me all the time. Like, I know what sounds good, what sounds bad, but I don't really know what I'm doing when I'm setting my tone. So when you're setting your tone, you're looking at the lows, low mids box as the main areas you want to be in. High mids and highs, not so much of a big deal. So you don't want too much high mids and highs in your bass. So a great place to start with your tone is to take your knobs and turn them all the way up. This is your bass, makes sense, we want low end. This is treble, makes it really bright, not really great. And this is your mids. Quick note on the mids before we go on. If you've seen this before on a bass amp head, this is deciding what frequency we're turning up in the mids. So the further to the left we go, the more we're adding in low mids, which makes sense. And when we cross the center, we're adding in high mids, which is not usually what we want because that's the space we leave for the keys and the guitars. So lows, let's add some low mid for clarity. Take it down a touch. And we don't need much treble because it's not really helping our tone. That's a great way to set your bass tone. If you've seen this section on a bass amp head, you know now that these are the frequencies and the lows that we want in the bass. These are the low mids, and anything further here are the highs and high mids, which aren't really essential for a bass. And now you know how to get a great bass tone. When you're playing or when you're choosing where to play, you're not looking for too much lows because remember who's king in the lows? Kick, and we also have bass. So if you play too low down the keyboard or the piano, then you start getting into their territory. So you're looking for either low mids or high mids. That's the main area you want to be in. The interesting thing about keys is that unlike every other instrument in the band, you have this almost unlimited selection of sounds to choose from. So the issue that keyboardists often have is choosing synth sounds that have way too much low end or way too much high end. To illustrate, I've pulled up a synth sound. So immediately there's tons of information here we don't need. First things first, let's cut out the lows because this is the sound of the instrument with just the lows. That is the sound of a bass guitar, so we don't want to take up the space reserved for the bass. Cut the lows. Next, let's focus on the highs. There's tons of unnecessary, unpleasant information up here in the highs, and we know that the highs are reserved for the drum highs and the vocal highs. Let's take this stuff out and see what we have left. Still a really great usable sound. Even if I play higher up, we still have a great usable sound. We can open it up a little bit more or even dial back the lows a bit more. And we still have a great sound. And now a quick word from our sponsors. Hello. I am our sponsors. But really my heart in doing this is to share anything and everything I know with as many people as possible for free. However, if you'd like to contribute to this or if you'd like to sponsor anything, check out the links below. So as a guitarist, when I'm deciding if I play low down my fretboard, like maybe power chords or big open chords, then I'm going to be adding low mid information. I'm going to listen to drums and bass and go, okay, that's cool. The bass guitar is primarily sitting in the lows and the low mids. That's his job. The main instrument that's going to concern me is the piano. The piano sounds pretty low. A lot of low mid information is in the piano. So if I play low as well, I'm adding more low mid information that already exists in the song. So instead, to make the song sound fuller, to sound like there's more happening, what I should do is play high mids. Play high up my fretboard, whether that's inversions, whether that's lines, something like this is probably a better idea to fit into the mix than playing low down. When I do live sound, I sometimes have guitarists come up to me like, hey man, could you give me more lows on my guitar to give me that nice big chugging sound like... Listen to what the lows in that guitar sound like. Or even a simple rhythm guitar like... Doesn't that sound exactly like a bass guitar? The same thing applies when you're setting your tone on your amp and you're dialing up the bass knob. You want to make sure you're not eating into the space that's reserved for only the bass. So if there's already a lot of low mids happening in the song and you sing in a low range as well, then you're adding to that feeling of a lot of low mids happening. For example, the only elements that you have in the song right now are the drums, the piano. Because this vocal is fairly high up, there's nothing sitting in between the space that the vocal high mids is sitting in. So the vocal sounds big, it sounds clear, there's nothing getting in the way at all. So as a vocalist, rather than just memorizing the part or like the cover you're singing or singing whatever anyone told you to sing, knowing this stuff helps you to plan out how you're choosing your keys and your range much, much better. Not just in the notes that I'm singing, but maybe tone so that my voice sounds bigger. Aha, we're gone into tone. Pro tip! This tip has to do with monitors or IEMs or in-ear monitoring or whatever, any way that you need to hear your vocals on stage. This is a huge problem for vocalists more often than anyone else. So usually what happens as a vocalist is you're singing on stage, the whole band is going for it, and you can't hear yourself. So you're like, Mr. Soundman, can I have more vocals please? More vocals, Mr. Soundman. And then you push your vocals higher and higher and higher and higher till your vocal starts feedbacking and the soundman wants to slap you. Sound familiar? So, how can we solve this problem? Frequency separation. Let me show you. So let's just say this is my IEM mix, my monitor mix. And this is my vocal. And I feel like, wow, I can't hear myself. And Mr. Soundman, can I have more vocals, please? And Mr. Soundman goes, Max, can't give you any more. Oh my gosh, what am I going to do now? So instead of looking to turn my vocal up, what I'm going to do is ask myself who is sitting in the high mids. Because remember, in the high mid box, vocal is always king. So when I'm trying to monitor myself as a vocalist, the main frequencies that I need in my monitor for my own vocal is high mids. So I'm going to listen to my monitor mix and ask myself, okay, who else is fighting for space with my vocals? It's probably not the drum and bass. Why? Because we know drum and bass, they're always sitting primarily in the lows, and also because drums is just percussive stuff, rhythmic stuff. There's no melodic information, notes playing in the drums that tends to fight with the vocals for space. We already covered that the piano is playing lower down, so the piano is a lot of low mid information. So that's not what's getting in the way. What about the guitar? The guitars are playing high up the fretboard, so there's lots of high mid information. Pro tip number 2, guitars generally have a lot more high mid information than keys like piano or pads or stuff that you normally play on a church stage. A guitarist that's playing slightly dirtier, like that means he's using a distortion or an overdrive pedal, these sounds introduce a lot more high mids into the guitar sound, but especially so if he's playing high up, like the guitarist is doing here. Remember, what we're going to do is we're trying to make sure we can hear the vocal clearly in the mix. So now, without touching the level of the vocals at all, I'm going to see if I can free up some space for my vocals in my mix by bringing the guitar down. Voila! I brought the guitar down. It's still there. I can still hear what the guitarist is doing, but just by bringing the guitar down, there's so much more space for the vocal. Pianos are still there, so I can still hear the chords. The bass is still my best indication of pitch, so I'm still pretty good as a vocalist. If you're a musician, you can also apply this tip by asking what else is sitting in the same frequency box as your instrument. For example, if you're a drummer struggling to hear your kick in your monitor mix, you can ask the sound guy to turn down the bass. Is this not an awesome pro tip? Told you. So there you have it, why frequency separation is essential info and how you can apply it. Hey man, so I understand all this, but my ears aren't really used to this yet. How do I practice this stuff, man? Really simple. Whatever app you're using to listen to music, whether on Windows or Mac, you just need to Google EQ or equalizer and you'll find it. Play a song you know really well, zero out all the other frequencies and listen to just the lows. Or for example, zero out all the other frequencies and listen to just the highs. Your ears will gradually get used to recognizing the frequencies in the music you know and love. In next week's video, we're going to be diving into vibe and feel, some really interesting territory. You know how sometimes you have a vibe or a feel in your head, but you don't quite know how to get it across in a song you're playing or a song you're writing? So we're going to talk about how you can use frequency separation to bring to life the vibe in your head. As always, if there's anything that I just touched slightly on in this video and you'd like me to dive into it in a separate video, let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, that's all the time we have. I'll see you guys next week.